Welcome back to the Empowering Minds Mental Health Podcast, where we hold real conversations that spark growth, healing, and emotional resilience. I'm excited to be joined by someone who shares this mission, Greg Meadows, a dedicated coach working closely with children and families to help them build healthy mindsets, purpose, and emotional strength. Greg, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So we're going to get right into it. Can you tell us who you are and why you do what you do?
Yeah, so it's a great question. My name is Gregory. I grew up in the South in Kentucky, and my origin story is that I grew up in a family that had some challenges. It was less than ideal, and I think many of us we have families that have quirks about them and things that are not fun or things that could be better. But I am a life coach. I have a degree in psychology. I also have yoga and massage certifications, but I predominantly work with teens, parents, families to help them find their way through challenging times. I teach parenting support classes. I have parenting support groups, and also we'll soon be starting a general support group so that families and adults can step in and talk about whatever's coming up for them, not just parenting family challenges. Maybe there's something external that they're challenged with that is impacting the family. So,
All right. So, in that, with your work with parents and families, what can parents and caregivers do to raise emotionally healthy boys? And the reason I'm kind of focusing in on men, because this is uh, mental health awareness for men. And so I
yeah.
just kind of want to touch in on some of those things today.
Yeah. I I have a special place in my heart for boys because I used to be one, and also boys are challenged more now than they ever have with
Mhm.
access to social media, more pressures to fit in, be strong, be stoic, these sorts of things. And being strong and stoic absolutely has a place and a time, right?
Mhm.
But teaching young boys how to process emotions, that emotions are okay. I have a saying, you have the right to have whatever emotion you want, but you don't have the right to do whatever you want with that emotion, right? So it's okay for boys to feel sad, disappointed, angry, scared, but it matters what we do with it. And so having adults in their community, in their direct circle, that lets them know that it's okay to have these feelings, but it matters what we do with them. And so doing things like modeling what that looks like, right? Adults sometimes tend to hide away all the challenges that they're having. And sometimes that's appropriate, right? So we're not going to
Mhm.
tell a 6-year-old that we're struggling with, some bills or some certain things like that. But what is age appropriate for that child? We might share, oh, I felt sad today at work because this customer was really upset and yelling at me. And, I took some time on my break to think about it and to think about that customer, and maybe that customer is having a bad day, and I kind of thought about it in a different way. Instead of being mad at the customer, I'm having compassion because there's something going on with that customer that I don't know. And so
Mhm.
teaching them through modeling examples, helping them process emotions when they come home from school and they maybe slam the door and they throw their backpack down, going checking in with them and saying, how was your day? It seems like there's something going on. And so a couple tools that I recommend is using curiosity, come from a
Mhm.
place of curiosity. So if your child has a habit of slamming the door, for example, not all door slams come from the same place, right? Sometimes maybe a child slams a door because um, they fell off their bike. Maybe it's because the teacher said something to them that was really triggering. Maybe they were bullied at school. Maybe their boyfriend or girlfriend broke up with them. So
Mhm.
using curiosity uh, um, can help break down those barriers, and then also just allowing time and space for when things are really challenging, right? And so that may
Mhm.
mean saying to your son, "Hey, I love you," and slamming the door is pretty triggering. It scares people. I want to talk to you about what happened. Can we do that in 10 minutes? Right?
Mhm.
I see that you need some time to decompress. How about we check back in 30 minutes? I'm going to make some lunch or some snacks for you, and then let's check in, right? So using curiosity and using time and space can be a great place to help sons process what's coming on, because we want sons to become great men. And if we don't
Mhm.
have a great relationship with emotions as adults, we can't teach what we don't know, right?
Mhm.
And so this is where I believe it's critical to help boys become great men through helping them process emotions, modeling it for them, and also processing with them.
I I love your overall concept, especially when you said coming from a place of curiosity. A lot of times language does matter. So it seems like coming from a place of curiosity would carry over better looking at your son or your child and saying, "What's wrong with you now?"
Yeah.
It kind of aggravates things sometimes.
Yeah, and our brains are hardwired to make quick decisions and judgments, especially when we're in a heightened state. So
Mhm.
our child comes in, slams the door, it triggers our fight or flight response, right? And especially if they have a habit of doing it, as a parent, we can jump to a conclusion. Oh, he's trying to be disrespectful and piss me off. And maybe that's not the case every single time. And so as a parent, I really encourage stepping back, take a
Mhm.
breath, regulate yourself, and be careful about the stories that we make up right away, right? When we
Mhm.
don't have all the information. So step back, be curious, and use time and space when it's needed.
Absolutely. This is good. So I want to go into this question. So what what is happening to our boys as suicide is on the rise?
Mhm,
Dating is down and
mhm,
boys, they're not growing up.
mhm. That's a great question, and it has a big answer, right? And so some of the things that I'm noticing, not only from my own experience, but looking forward in time, is that we don't have rites of passage for boys. In most indigenous cultures, Aboriginal cultures, we had rites of passage. And that was a way to tell a boy that you have to put down your boyhood, the playfulness, and now you're going to enter adulthood with
Mhm.
new freedoms, but also new responsibility and new
Mhm.
expectations, right? So we don't have rites of passage for boys. And what that could look like is each family's different, right?
Mhm.
So rites of passage could be preparing a boy to spend the night in the woods alone by himself, right? With a tent and, how to make a fire and do things like that. It could be taking them out hunting. It could be helping them fix a car. All of these skills are small little rites of passage that we start to develop to help boys have the skills that they need to feel strong, to feel capable, to feel courageous, right? And so boys are not getting rites of passage. That's why we have 20, 30 something year old boys or boys who are dressed up as men, right? And they don't have the skills, they don't have the resources. Maybe they didn't have a strong male role model, right? And that doesn't mean that the father, the biological father, is the only place you can get that. You
Mm-hmm.
can get that from neighbors, from uncles, from mentors, from therapists, all of
Yeah.
any man, any safe, trusted man in the community can be a strong male role model, right? And so not having rites of passage would be one. Another one is um, boys don't really have to interact, especially with girls, right? So now everyone's just texting. And
Mm-hmm.
so our brains, and this is happening just universally, but since we're talking about boys and men, um, boys don't have to develop the skills to walk up to a young lady and say, "Hello, my name is Greg. How are you? Um, I thought you were pretty and I would love to talk to you. And, uh, do you like, do you like this ice cream? Just any sort of thing, to like
Mm-hmm.
strike up a conversation. So, boys, men are deficient in social skills, right? So now they don't have the skills to like go out and talk. Everything is via text and social media and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not developing social skills to create resiliency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so on the antithesis of this, boys and men are not prepared for rejection, right? Because they never have to be rejected face to face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if if a girl doesn't like you, she just will not say anything on a
Right.
social media platform or a dating app, right? And there's so much competition in dating apps and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so boys are regressing because they don't want to feel any sort of discomfort, right? They have not been prepared to be emotionally resilient. They don't want to face rejection. And so there are, I think I saw a statistic that, men in the 22 to 45 demographic, only 40% of men are in the dating pool, right? And so that means 60% of men are not dating or they're doing something else, video games or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? So not having rites of passage, not having emotional resiliency skills to actually walk up and talk with people. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be just girls, it just in any sort of social situation,
Mm-hmm.
they are lacking skills. And then I think a third thing is parents not being involved, right? And as parents and caregivers and as adults, there's so much going on in the world, so much in the news, so much in the politics, so much with food prices and all these sorts of things, right? That adults are overwhelmed, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're just barely managing our own stuff sometimes. And to be aware of what our children and child is looking at, observing online, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. If we are not involved in our child's social media and internet presence and what they are looking at and things like that, the internet will educate your child if you don't. If you don't
Yes.
give your child context for what they're seeing, they will make it up themselves, or
Mm-hmm.
worse, their friends will tell them. And their friends don't have any more experience than they do. So they're all
Mm-hmm.
trying to teach each other, right? So the third thing I would just say is be involved in your children's internet social media life. Absolutely imperative.
Mm-hmm. That's good. You said a few key things that stood out with me, and you mentioned the word community. And I've kind of been in conversation with different people over the last few weeks. And so, of course, I'm 48, so of course times have changed. And I was sharing with them, I was like, you know what? I'm noticing that it's more neighborhoods now and less community. Because to me, community, when I was growing up, if I was doing something inappropriate, it was okay for my neighbor to say, "Hey, you know better than that," and I'm getting ready to call your, I'm getting ready to call your mama and daddy. But
Right.
you don't kind of see those things anymore. And
Yeah.
then something else that I was sharing too. I said, in our generation, boys were taught to be, tough, uh, don't cry. I said, now they are, in their 30s and 40s, and they don't know how to effectively communicate how they're feeling, or I'm stressed, I'm depressed, I need help.
Yeah.
I guess like over time, to me, I look at it as over time they have suppressed how they have really been feeling from adolescence all the way through. And so you're right, that does have a serious impact.
Hmm.
Yep. And so I want to ask you too, what unique challenges do fathers face in society? And I imagine this is going to be a wild answer.
Get your bucket out because we got to put a lot in it. So,
Yeah.
all the things that I mentioned earlier, right?
Hmm.
So now we have men in their 20s and 30s and they're having children. They don't have emotional resiliency skills. Maybe they didn't have a positive, strong male role model, right? And also, um, kind of circling back to what you said, is that there is, and I think that we get into throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And what I mean by that is that it's okay to be stoic and strong because that is a skill we need in the world. There
Hmm.
are times when that sort of masculine skill
Yes.
is, and everyone can use it, but when fathers need to be strong and stoic and push through. And that's not the only skills. So, you know, um, someone said recently, when you're a hammer or when you act like a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So when we apply this stoic, never cry, be strong everywhere,
Hmm.
um, that inevitably will get us into trouble because
Yeah.
then there's no safe place for us to put our mask down and put our armor down. And as men, we need places to put that down. if and as men and fathers, we go out into the world all day long. We do battle all day long within
Hmm.
ourselves, out in the world, at the job, at the grocery store, just driving down the street. But if we can't feel safe and put our armor down in our own home,
Hmm.
uh, that leads to fatigue, that leads to anxiety, that leads to depression, that leads to suicidality, all of these sorts of things. And so I always recommend that fathers and men have other fathers and men to go to. We need to father each other.
Hmm.
And in a community, like a men's circle or a men's group, or even at the barber shop or in a Rotary Club or whatever, we father each other. We need that. We have done that for thousands of years. And since like kind of about the 1950s, when we kind of moved from agricultural to industrial era, we started moving from multi-generational families to nuclear families. Now we're all separated, right? And that was seen as the pinnacle of success, that you move to the city, you have your own house, you have your own car, you have your own family and all these sorts of things. And the pendulum, that was maybe necessary for a time, but now we do need to swing back towards community,
Yeah.
tribes, those sorts of things, because
Hmm.
we can't do it alone. We weren't designed we're not biologically geared to do it alone. And so when we go it alone as men, fathers, mothers, whoever, uh, we can get into trouble and we can get underwater.
Absolutely. Well, my next question for you, which really you actually kind of answered it, but if you want to elaborate, I was going to ask you, what do men need to be able to process these emotions, and how and where can they do this? But you've kind of touched on that just a little bit, but if you want to add some more
Yeah,
to
yeah. I want to highlight this because it cannot be overstated. Men men process emotions sometimes differently than women.
okay.
And we need a space where men can process emotions with other men, right? In
Mm-hmm.
a safe place, right? So this is where I recommend a safe place, whatever that is. Like I said, it could be a barbershop, a Rotary club, it could be a car club, it could be
Yeah.
a men's support group, any of those things where men feel safe to be around other men and to tell the truth. We
Mm-hmm.
need to tell the truth because when we're out in the world, uh, if we were just emoting and sharing our feelings all day, that may not be appropriate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But having a place to go to talk about what the challenges specifically for men are, because there are some specific challenges. There are some universal challenges too, but
Mm-hmm.
there are some specific challenge. For example, I am a part of a men's organization and a virtual men's circle, so that we meet once a week. We talk about everything. We talk about from finances. We talk about relationships. We talk about fatherhood. All of these sorts of things in a safe, confidential space where we can take our mask off, take our shield off for a minute, and talk about what we need to talk about so that we can feel resilient, disciplined, courageous, prepared to go back into the world because we have fathered and we have been fathered.
Mm-hmm. I really love your answers, and I cannot wait for the viewers to listen to this because faith-based groups, for example, so they typically do like men's conferences, things like that.
Yeah.
But a conference, typically, they do it once a year. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to present something to the men, like you said, like a virtual, because these things are like things you need to build on. If you only do it once a year, then you've lost a lot until that next year. So I'm so glad you said that, and I can't wait for them to view this, just to give them some different ideas on how they can connect. Like you say, once a week or once every 2 weeks, because they do need that safe space where they can discuss things that impact them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add to what you said is that I think our main way that we love the world and the way that we love others as men
Hmm.
is through acts of service.
Hmm.
And we are really good at acts of service. If you need an oil change, I got you. If you need the trash taken out, I got you. If
Hmm.
you need the gutters cleaned, I got you, right? Um, and we are doing acts of service all the time.
Hmm.
But it is vital to do acts of service for ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
Because you can't pour from an empty cup. So,
Hmm. That's good. All right. So, my last question for you today: what offerings do you have that can help teens and parents?
yeah. So, I offer, of course, one-on-one sessions. A lot of times, families are just having a bump in the road and they need just a little bit of guidance and a little bit of tools and perspective to see
Hmm.
things differently. So I have one-on-one virtual sessions. I have a parenting support class that'll be starting in September. I will have parent support groups online. I have a Facebook parent support group where parents can come in and ask questions. I also We'll be starting a general support group. So even if you're not a parent, you can
Mm-hmm.
come in and talk about what's coming up because you may not be directly a parent. You might be a step parent. You might be
Mm-hmm.
uh, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, things like that that are coming up for you, or something external. You lost a job, things like that. So I have those as well. And then asking questions online, I will answer questions. If anybody sends me questions, I can answer them live through my social media and things like that. So,
Okay. All right. Now, you've mentioned about, social media and things like that. So where can people find you and reach out to you for a free consult if they want to do services with you later down the line?
yeah. So, Gregory at walkingmeadows.com. You can find me on social media, Walking Meadows Coaching on Facebook and on Instagram at Walking Meadows. You can also find me on YouTube, Walking Meadows Coaching as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. My my podcast, I love to do education around the stigmas around mental health to encourage and empower others. And so you've helped me do that today. And so I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I am so grateful, Jennifer, for your time and to be able to share my experience and wisdom and professional background and things like that. So I'm grateful that I had this opportunity.
Thank you. All right. Well, it was nice meeting you, and I'll be in touch with you soon.
Thank you so
All right.
much. Have a good
Take
day.
care. You too. Thank you.